Somewhere at the very beginning of your gameplay, the user gets bored and doesn't see the point in continuing to play.
But again, it's necessary to fine-tune the advertising monetization well.
Currently, relying on data on a cohort of 50 to 70 users doesn't make sense because there is no statistical significance here.
Hello, dear friends. Today we are conducting another exciting game review. Today we are reviewing the game provided by Vitya. It is an idle gas station game. Basically, it looks like this. And as usual, I'll start by asking Vitya to tell us what this game is about, when it was released, and then Vika will tell us about the pasta. Zoryana on user acquisition. Denis and I will say something about monetization, and then again we will all talk about the gameplay. But first, I would like to ask our viewers to like, subscribe, and if they have any questions, not to hesitate to ask them in the comments. So, Vitya, please tell us what, how, and why.
Yes, hello everyone. Initially, I will explain the idea. We decided to gradually move from 2D to 3D. That's it. And we basically decided to take some project foundation to try to reskin it and so on. That is, we essentially wanted to enter some niche. And we chose idle arcade as the genre. Well, looking at things such as Burger Please and My Super Hotel and similar ones like these. So an interesting idea came up. And it seemed like a simple implementation. And it's convenient to pass it on later because it forms a core that can be easily reused. So, that was the plan. Why exactly this theme? We started thinking about what content might appeal to the majority of the audience, and decided to focus on an automotive theme and try to enter this niche. So, and from there, the idea of a gas station immediately came up and definitely seemed very interesting. So, we decided to develop it. But unlike Burger Please, which we consider a favorite and a leader in this niche, we decided to try to simultaneously and in parallel create several development chains. Not just a petrol station, there is also a shop, a toilet, and a cafe, and so on, so that the user needs to constantly focus on several multiple different processes. This idea was probably not very well revealed, but the original concept was like this. That's roughly how it all started, basically, in a nutshell, essentially.
Thank you, Vitya. Well, let's see. It's probably quite difficult to talk about Afghanistan with idlers, but Zika, you try to reveal something.
Hello everyone. Well, there's not much to say here. Indeed, there is very little search traffic, and often it is branded. Let's share the screen right away. In fact, if we indeed talk about organic traffic, in this genre of games, there is not much of it. Or if branded, so sometimes a person comes in and searches for a specific game title. What can I say about Soshka? Today I will be brief. What is the problem? If we are talking about petrol stations, in their direct sense, then often you will see specific companies related to petrol stations when we analyze certain search queries. For the keywords you can be indexed for, like idle, GAZ, and so on, you have good indexing. You are even in the top positions, but the problem is that there is very little traffic. So even the traffic you have is likely very small and organic. However, there are a couple of remarks I would recommend addressing, but they are not critical overall. First remark, you have a slight overuse of keywords. You can easily fix it by simply adding around 500 or 1000 characters to get rid of this overuse. This is not very good from an optimization point of view. That is, it doesn't harm as there is indexing and ranking by the main keywords. Nevertheless, from the point of view of social specialists, yes, this mistake should ideally be corrected. Regarding the visuals, I liked the video. I think it should work very well in this direction. It was short, and everything was executed clearly. But I didn't really like the screenshots because they are filled with very small details. There are too many of them, and a person can simply get lost and not understand what is happening or what needs to be done. Therefore, I would recommend trying to test launch screenshots that contain some focal captions. If you even look at this competitor, they have over 100 million downloads, and you see they have some initial 3 screenshots with focal captions. Maybe you should do something similar, because there are no other apps here for burger please, I think. Let's also check in the hotel now. There are also screenshots in the hotel. These are the competitors you sent, and I use them as a basis. So, I would run a test. Take a look. Another remark about iOS. You don't have a video here. Why?
And recently, we uploaded a video to Play Market, and so far, there are some minor issues with multiple resolutions, but we will fix it and upload it again.
Yes, I would recommend it, too, especially on iOS where you know it starts up immediately, and that really grabs attention. I think it will work well. The same goes for the screenshots. I recommended it as well, so you can even test it with A-tests. You should have some organic traffic to see what works better. So, and I think I actually had some additional comments regarding the number of titles. Well, the title is 28 out of 30. A short description is also 76 out of 80. Fine. Fix the overspam, and overall, that's probably it regarding the rating. We have a rating of 4.0, or more precisely 4.3 in the States, which is a low rating, I would recommend. Well, it's a good rating, but it's a bit low, so I would recommend raising it to at least 4.5. Firstly, you might appear in other collections, and, secondly, it really works well for organic traffic. Moreover, on Android, they don't see screenshots or videos at all, so you need to attract them with ratings, like some position in the category, some kind of information that should catch their attention. Because your icon is themed, and to say that it's bad or not quite right. No, I won't say anything like that. It's a logical icon, I like it, so no questions there. So, I would work a bit on the rating. Maybe you could ask for reviews more often to get people to rate your game. They often throw in a beggar at the very beginning, when the person hasn't really played yet, but for some reason it works well, and the person often rates it more frequently there. And I think that's probably all I wanted to say. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to answer.
In general, as I wrote before, I will repeat once more an interesting question with cross-locales on iOS with keywords. Is it a must-have? Do we need to fill them out? Because we only have one language, which is the US. It is the main and only one, and there is nothing else. Accordingly, and here is the question, does it make sense? And is it necessary to fill in some conditional English, Spanish, and so on there?
Well, look, in any case, if we are talking about other markets, when a person enters, like, they will write in their own language. If we are talking about locales like Mexico, Spain, it will be available and will be in Spanish. You might have automatic translation working, and generally, a person can find your app. But the problem is, I'm afraid, that if you don't fill in each geo separately that interests you, it gets indexed and ranked very poorly. I strongly recommend that if you are entering another market and you want to test there, for example, another country, and drive traffic there, and also expect some organic influx and want indexing, then you absolutely need to fill in these countries. That is, if globally, like you will be buying, for example, Facebook, Google Ads, or some other advertising, overall it is not necessary. If we are specifically talking about organic traffic and keyword ranking, then from an optimization perspective, it is much better to work when you are targeting a specific country, even if you have English language queries, because most likely, in this niche, there won't be many local keywords in Spanish. It will all be idle, tycoon, it will all be in English, so, well, kind of. Nevertheless, if you fill in this locale separately, it starts to index much faster, and you get more positions for a large number of keywords. So, I would recommend, yes, opening and filling it in.
But I am definitely more inclined towards keeping only the English language, and if we open a cross-locale, to fill in additional keywords in English. There, in my opinion.
Yes, of course, it works and so do I.
I would rather ask it this way. Do you recommend filling in all the locales in English for each new app when entering the English market, so to speak? Or is it more of a 50-50 situation? Could you elaborate on this? What are the best practices for this?
Take all these 50s, look at the price. If you have something to fill them with, then yes, of course. If you don't, well, not really. There is no such pool of keys. Then it is generally not necessary. If we are talking about this niche of applications, specifically in this theme, no, it is not necessary for the reason that there is actually no pool of search queries that you urgently need to fill somewhere. If we were talking about, I don't know, children's educational games, well, here you go. You have this many keys. They exist in every language locally. They are in other languages. You definitely need to open adjacent locales and fill each of them, because they will really work to your advantage. So, therefore, it really depends on the niche, and, for this particular case, there is no urgent or important need.
Got it. Thank you very much indeed.
Manager.
Vika, thank you very much. As always, you explained everything well and to the point. Thanks. Now we move from the main optimization to user acquisition, giving the floor to you.
As per the good old tradition, could you please tell us what you have already done, what tests you have conducted for purchases, whether you have tried buying traffic somewhere, and what the results were?
We tried purchasing, but not to try to break even, rather to look at the product metrics. So, there were 2 purchases. One for the United States a long time ago, a few months back. It was just a little to stir things up, but it was ineffective. And recently, just a week ago, we tried purchasing traffic in the Philippines with a small budget. Also to look at product metrics. That's about it. A bit.
Excellent. Where did you purchase?
In Google Ads, but there is nothing particularly interesting there.
All right, please share the results. Which product metrics were measured? Can you tell me the game's retention, playtime, and how many ad impressions, interstitials, and rewards you have per user per session?
Yes, about the recent purchase. In Philippines, the first day retention is 38.7%, the third day retention is 11.7%, and the 7th day retention is 2.9%.
How exactly was it? Like to use the ranking data, too.
Approximately 2,000 in 2 days, and they were carefully looked at. So, the budget there was about $100, and the cost per purchase was 5 cents. That's it. And, regarding ad views, it came out to about 4 to 5. For these users, our previous organic metrics were slightly higher. On average, over a few days, not the first day, it reaches approximately about 7 views now, 7 to 8. We are now trying to increase in this direction.
So, is this 7 to 8 per user?
Per user, is that the total amount of money? Did I hear that correctly? Yes, indeed, right.
Okay, for the United States, when you bought the Polymetrics.
The game was still very raw at that point, so I think there's no real point in really analyzing it. You could say there was definitely no purchase.
Well, overall, from what you said, the product metrics sound good. We need to improve the 7th day retention, and after the 7th day, there is something on the 21st day, with users reaching up to the 30th day.
No, everything is getting cut off very quickly right now. Right now.
What you tried in the Philippines, did you purchase a CPI campaign or ROAS?
CPI campaign. The sole purpose was to quickly and efficiently purchase traffic to look at the product metrics.
I understand that the test has already been stopped. And what about the revenue? Did it reach the target? And how much was spent?
Very, very weak, it seems. The studio last checked Tenjin. It was about 10% overall. So, there's really a lot of everything. What is 10%? 10% means from the $100 we spent, about $10 in revenue. And the hypothetical Tenjin tracked only half of the purchases that he Googled.
Do you have in-app purchases, or is it entirely ad-based?
I mean with the ads.
User, and I ask a technical question now. Charge. I have a quick question about something technical. If you don't mind, charge. Just 1 second, please. Did you perhaps execute Google Ads on Google Play or possibly on First Open?
Was it done on the Google Play installation?
This is wrong and very, very skewed. In this case, Google is showing 30 to 40% better results than they actually are. 40% in terms of housing, they actually are.
I also just wanted to actually ask, but I didn't specifically specify. We have Tenjin connected for MMP, accordingly, and here's the question. Should we use its installations for it? Or perhaps maybe just Firebase's First Open? Is there a difference or not?
It's better to use Firebase.
If it's just a purchase on Google Ads, yes, Firebase is much better. It will be more relevant and track installations correctly.
Understood. So, Zoryana continues.
Yes, now we will share the screen and take a look. In the meantime, could you tell me what kind of creatives you purchased? Was it text? Was it video? What was it?
It was just text, small text inserts. The creative was not tested.
We haven't thoroughly tested the creative in detail. Let's see what competitors are buying in the market, where they have traffic, and analyze. Here's the very first game you sent. You can immediately look at the screenshots at the bottom, the ones they have right on the screen, right on play. Market. Let's move on to the creatives. Note that here. Can you just see my screen? Yes. Note that it says HTML5 format here. This means that indeed, certainly, all these creatives are playtime. And indeed, these kinds of games actually work well on playtime, allowing the user to try playing and sort of see. You see, like this. Here I can even just tweak something. I actually even got the playtime open. So, we looked at the playtime, played around, and we have a video. Really, not many impressions were spent on it. You see, it was tested. Here is a 1-minute video. They probably wanted to reach YouTube as well, which is a popular platform for sharing videos. Clearly, this video is not on the networks because such long videos, which often exceed the platform's limits, are not uploaded there. So, everything is being purchased specifically from this competitor. On the playtime, let's move on. Second game, second competitors. Now, look at where the downloads have come from over the last month. 30 days. This is the United States, Mexico, a bit of Brazil, there's India, Indonesia, and here the picture is slightly different. Here, most of it is on video. They also have HTML, meaning they test both videos and playlists, but most of their work is focused on videos. Let's open it and take a look. Videos are short. There is a playable, but it doesn't open for me here. There is also a lengthy video available. Unfortunately, it did not manage to attract a significant number of views, despite its content. And I also wanted to show this video, which is not just a gameplay montage. Here is a little insert with a phone in hand. Networks really love these kinds of videos, considering that indeed the first and second competitors are buying on playables. He is buying on networks. From experience, I can say that idlers work well on Mintegral and Unity. Sometimes they get picked up on iron source, depending on which publishers it suggests to us. But overall, the game can be considered for purchase on video networks. We need to improve the product metrics and thoroughly debug all the advertising, which Oleg will now tell us about.
The video with the hand, by the way, is very similar to TikTok software, meaning they're usually the best compilations for something, so you can use something like that.
We tested, yes, but idlers on TikTok perform very poorly, though it can be tested. Yes, it's interesting. Mainly, these are video networks. There is cheap traffic there, including the Philippines. As a rule, they pay off there. Philippines, Indonesia, Mexico, LATAM. But, again, we need to fine-tune the advertising monetization. Oleg, the floor is yours.
Yes, reality check. As for ad monetization, I can't give much advice. Some basic methods are still missing there, if I remember correctly. Guys, you already have a cast set up. What am I, Ben? The only thing I will say is let's try to install the latest version 3.8, where we have added the action grids. But the main problem with this game is not with the external monetization setup, but with the gameplay itself. I think the main issues here are related to the convenience and inconvenience of the controls, and so forth. With a splendid first-day retention of 38%, it is quite within the norm. However, things get much worse afterwards. There are problems with these. Denis, maybe you could fix something here.
No, there's nothing to correct here. Yes, the retention drop function is very steep. This means that user drop-off occurs on the first day. Accordingly, somewhere at the very beginning of your gameplay, the user gets bored and doesn't see a way to continue playing. How can this be fixed? This is what you have already talked about the fact that you added 3 different mechanics. Users don't even reach the second mechanic, right?
Half of them drop off before the second one, right?
Well, this means that the user is successful. That is, you need to look at the camera, the angle, things like that which should captivate them in the first half of the game. What else can be added is that what can also be noted is that the appearing reward spots are generally acceptable overall. You mentioned there are about 7 total impressions in general, but you get around approximately 3 rewards per user on average. For idlers specifically, this is low indeed. It's not because of bad spots, but rather because users do not play further enough. I think if you look at a funnel specifically for those users who progressed further along, they would have received a lot more rewards. There it should increase to 7 to 8. The user, I don't know, you can check it with the data. On average, for idlers, you can aim for a benchmark of 10 to 11, at least it used to be that way. Currently, the economy is always moving towards such hybrid monetization, meaning when there are both in-app purchases and advertisements, you also have some part of in-app purchases in the form of users not seeing advertisements. Most likely, they do not buy it in that volume and will not buy it until the challenge of retaining users for a longer period of time is overcome.
That's in the Philippines, right?
No, it's not about the Philippines. If the guys go now and buy 5,000 in the States, they will have the same picture.
I'll just add a little bit more about purchases. Recently, we also released a small performance update, and since the beginning of the month, the picture for in-apps has been very positively pleasant. Somewhere over these 6 to 7 days, there were 10 purchases, and then it suddenly started to appear. Perhaps. After this, after the recent purchase, we definitely released a significant optimization fix recently. Maybe this was one of our very weak points, an issue we had.
The question now is that you are looking at, say, 10 purchases for 150 to 300 users, right? So you need to look not in a scattered way, but in a cohort. So, on average, you have received 10 purchases from the latest version. These could have been purchases made by users who started playing from the first day, or they could have been purchases that users made on the first. Well, on the 0 day, so to speak. It's unclear, meaning it's unclear how many users, say 50 users, came in one day and whether there were any purchases from them. The data is very small, meaning that when you start to scale, you will see a completely different picture. Because the larger the purchase volume, the more the quality of users will either deteriorate or eventually optimize, meaning it will somehow level out. But initially, relying on data, that is, on a cohort of 50 to 70 users, does not make sense because there is no statistical significance here. And what I would plan for the future, in terms of advertising monetization, immersive advertising would fit well here. That is, various opportunities for native, roughly speaking, banner advertising that promotes different brands and products here and services. You have the space to expand further. You can place billboards there within this petrol station, inside the shop, because the shop is very empty. I really don't mean to offend anyone, but it looks like you gave a prototype to soon-to-be users, which might not be the best idea. The game itself does not exist yet. That is, there is no content in the game. The core mechanic itself is the user. Well, the little person moves. Yes, there are questions about the controls. It's a bit inconvenient on turns. When the user rotates, but this will probably be addressed later in the game section. But in terms of game content, to retain the user and to sell them something further, there's nothing to do yet, and I understand why users drop off. For the first 5 cars, I refueled. It was already clear and boring to me. Nothing happens afterwards. Well, overall, I mentioned the spots and the additions, but that's for the future, because right now we don't need to think about that. We need to focus on something else, specifically, the overall economy. I understand that your sales are significantly better on Apple devices than on Android devices.
Yes, purchases are better there, but out of these, in the last month, there were about 40 purchases, probably, and only slightly less than 10 on Android, the rest all on iOS.
Android users are always more tolerant of ads. Plus, you have a geo where, in general, people don't often buy anything. Perhaps when there is an Android test in the US, with more additional purchases there, the picture will be slightly different. But this trend is always present. Android users are more tolerant, so there, especially on Android and especially in T3 countries, you can be more aggressive with advertising. Let's say you currently get an interstitial only upon reaching a level, as far as I understand.
There is a system in place now. We have an interval of 2.5 minutes, every 2.5 minutes. There will definitely be an advert, but starting from 1.5 to 2.5 minutes, if some event happens, you unlock something or something like that, then it is shown. I understand.
So, a certain milestone was conditionally reached and then, yes, like, native pause occurs and users hang on the internet. Basically, it's okay. The only thing you can do is try to optimize for countries that don't have very high average revenue in the Activision advertising segment, especially for them. Move this milestone a bit. I mean reduce the cooldown, thereby you might slightly worsen retention, but since there is practically no retention on the 7th day, you can at least look at the initial stages, initially. But in principle, when you reduce the cooldown, there will be more impressions, the CPM will be lower, but more impressions are much more important, as you will conditionally get more revenue. And win, accordingly, your multiverse. Yes, indeed. Consequently, and purchases thereafter. Well, in principle, that's all regarding the advertising networks. I don't see much point in just talking about it. If you use a cast, then basically your set of standard advertising networks increases, as Oleg mentioned, with SDK updates. Well, that's probably most of it.